We begin with important news just into CNN. The debt limit talks on Capitol Hill hitting a snag. This morning, the top Republican negotiator walking out of a meeting, saying the White House stance is unreasonable. Congressman Garrett Graves says talks for now are, quote, on pause. That just a few hours after President Biden was briefed by his top negotiators, the president leaving a G7 leaders dinner in Japan early for that update. And less than 24 hours ago, Team Biden and the Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy both voicing optimism, saying they were seeing progress in those talks. So did one member of the centrist Problem Solvers Caucus.
Everyone's not going to be happy with everything. That's, to me, always a good deal if everyone's a little upset. And, it's not going to be perfect. But the bottom line is we're going to make sure that the full faith and credit of the United States continues.
Let's get straight to CNN's Melanie Zanona. She's live on Capitol Hill. Melanie, early in the morning, there was optimism. What happened?
Well, this is a huge setback for these talks. There was optimism, as you noted yesterday, and even heading into this meeting. Negotiators did meet this morning on Capitol Hill, but they briefly broke up. And coming out of that meeting, Garrett Graves, one of the lead negotiators for Republicans, told us we decided to press pause because it's just not productive. So I talked to some sources who said there are a number of issues where they just feel like they're at an impasse right now. And as of right now, there are no additional meetings scheduled for today. So look, John, you've seen these negotiations play out before. Usually there are legislative blow-ups before everyone can finally come together. There's a lot of posturing that goes on both sides. And as we've seen, both Republicans and Democrats are facing a lot of pressure and getting a lot of heat from their right and left flanks to not cave and to dig in. But in terms of a timeline, it is very problematic because they were hoping to reach a deal by this weekend. That is something that Speaker Kevin McCarthy said is needed in order to get this bill through the floor and get it over to the Senate by this early June deadline. And so it is all but dashing hopes that negotiators are going to be able to reach a deal in principle by this weekend. That's not to say that they can't eventually get it done, but this is not a very welcome development on Capitol Hill, John.
And Mel, any details? Sometimes it's one little thing that can set these things off the rails for a little bit. Sometimes it's kind of a combination that they're stuck on everything and they just say, let's take a break. Do we know?
Yeah, I think it's more the latter. It's a combination of issues. The talks had been slowly but surely moving ahead. Some of the issues that have come up in the last 24 hours, according to our sources, is the White House has been pushing for a debt ceiling hike that would last into 2025 because they don't want to have to deal with this again until after the next presidential election. But in talking to Republicans, that is something they said, if we're going to entertain that, we need to see a lot more savings and cuts put on the table. The other issue at play has been work requirements. That's something Republicans are pushing for. Biden seems to be open to some form of work requirements for TANF, which is the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families programs, but nothing has been finalized. So still a lot to go and a lot that could go wrong between now and early June, John.
Melanie Zanona, appreciate the hustle on the breaking news on Capitol Hill. Keep us posted if we learn anything else. With me in studio to share their reporting and their insights, CNN's Jeff Zeleny, Mariana Sotomayor of The Washington Post, and Zolan Kano-Youngs of The New York Times. So this is both expected, I would say, because the issues are so important and the divide is so big, but also potentially troubling if you're a CEO, if you're financial markets, if you're the President of the United States who's overseas right now telling people, I got this, America will not default.
Without question. I mean, all signs had been pointed to an agreement, which was actually a little surprising because that does not usually happen sort of going into a weekend. But I think that one thing this is doing, we've only known about this for a short time, but already the sense of urgency, I think perhaps from Wall Street may change on this. We'll see what the market does today. But heading into the weekend, this is not the place where the White House thought they would be. You heard the optimism from Josh Gottheimer there, the congressman from New Jersey. So look, this often happens. There are some hiccups, but it is the work requirements that is causing the White House a lot of grief from the left. So that's the vice here that they find themselves.
And to that point, when you see Josh Gottheimer saying, I think we're going to get there and get there soon, when you see both the president and the House Speaker saying we're suddenly making progress, that's a conversation in the middle. Right? And so both the left and the right say, oh, no. And so let's start with the left. You have Democrat, progressives saying, stop negotiating, Mr. President. Invoke the 14th Amendment, never really been tested in the courts, but just say, the Constitution says, the amendment says the public debt can never be questioned. Bernie Sanders among the progressives who's saying, we don't want cuts. Take a chance.
Using the 14th Amendment would allow the United States to continue to pay its bills on time and without delay, prevent an economic catastrophe, and prevent devastating cuts to some of the most vulnerable people in this country. it should be exercised if necessary.
So again, we go into the details, but if you're the White House team and you're walking back into the meeting today, even though you're making progress, you know the phones are lighting up with progressives saying, stop, don't give away too much.
And they have been, right? I mean, they've already been feeling the pressure from the left flank, particularly after last weekend when the president cited the fact that he did vote for some work requirements as a senator. Right before he left on his trip as well, he had comments where he said, look, you know, we're talking about work requirements, but it wouldn't be of anything of serious consequence. He has dropped hints that that is a subject, a point of focus now where there could be possible consensus, which has led to a frustrated left flank of the party at this point. But remember, in terms of using the 14th Amendment, this is also somebody in President Biden that came into office and often celebrated, talked about his ability to strike deals with members on the other side. So would you, when you look at that context, is he really going to go for this option? Karine Jean-Pierre the other day also said that he didn't think that would be an ultimate solution for what we're seeing.
Right. They want to talk it out. And again, just yesterday, the House Speaker, so you could put the negotiators back up. Number one, Garrett Graves is his trusted deputy among House Republicans. But the House Speaker complimented the White House team, saying, I like these people, I trust these people, we can get it done. That sent a signal to McCarthy's right. And of course, he is just tenuously Speaker of the House Freedom Caucus yesterday, saying the U.S. House of Representatives has done its job. There should be no further discussion until the Senate passes legislation. So the Speaker's right flank saying, stop, we don't like this nice talk.
Yeah, it's been a very interesting contrast this entire week because McCarthy has been using every moment possible to say things are going well. Look, all Republicans are united. He couldn't stop saying that on repeat. While at the same time, behind the scenes, conservatives were starting to get pretty shaky. They were worried at Garrett Graves actually being tapped. They see him as someone who is just a deal maker, so they already had a feeling that their bill that they passed, they know a lot of it is not going to become law, but they really do not see Graves as someone who could deliver on a lot of what the Freedom Caucus wants. So this statement that they put out yesterday strategically, after they left, after even they were being very complimentary of where things are, is really bigger. I think we should be looking at it more as to what this means for these next stops. And clearly, Graves is now listening and saying, maybe we should pause.
Maybe we should pause. And now the question is it just a pause? Is it a hiccup or is it a problem? And we'll continue to report that out